Bumpy Johnson made the reservation 3 weeks in advance. Le Chateau was Manhattan's most prestigious French restaurant, helmed by chef Vincent DeLuca, a culinary prodigy who'd trained in Paris and returned to New York with ambitions of earning a Michelin star. His restaurant had been featured in every major publication. Celebrities flew in specifically to eat at his tables. A reservation required connections, patience, and deep pockets. Bumpy had all three. The reservation was for 8 p.m. on a Friday in March 1961. Their anniversary dinner. Intimate, just the two of them. No associates, no bodyguards, no business. At 7:30 p.m., Bumpy was across town finishing a meeting that had run longer than expected. A dispute between two numbers runners that required his personal attention. He'd told Julius to handle it, but both men had insisted on speaking with Bumpy directly. By the time the issue was resolved, it was 7:53 p.m. Bumpy called the restaurant from a payphone. "This is Bumpy Johnson. I have a reservation at 8. I'm running a few minutes behind. My wife will arrive first. Please seat her and let her know I'm on my way." The hostess said she'd take care of it. Bumpy hung up and headed to his car, already planning his apology to Mayme for being late to their anniversary dinner. Mayme Johnson arrived at Le Chateau at exactly 8 p.m. She wore a midnight blue dress that Bumpy had bought her last month, pearls at her neck, her hair styled elegantly. She'd spent 2 hours getting ready, excited for this rare evening alone with her husband. No business talk, no interruptions, just the two of them. She pushed open the heavy oak door and stepped into the restaurant's entrance. The hostess looked up from her podium, saw Mayme, and her professional smile faltered for just a second before returning. "Good evening," the hostess said. "Do you have a reservation?" "Yes, Johnson, table for 2 at 8 o'clock. The hostess checked her book, found the name, and hesitated. "I see. And will Mr. Johnson be joining you?" "He's running a few minutes late. He called ahead. He asked that I be seated, and he'll be here shortly." Another pause. "One moment, please." The hostess disappeared through a door marked private. Mayme stood in the entrance, noticing that other guests were being seated immediately while she waited. A white couple arrived after her and were walked straight to their table without question. 5 minutes passed. The hostess returned, followed by a man in an immaculate white chef's coat. He was in his early 40s, tall and thin, with dark hair slicked back and an expression of barely concealed irritation. Chef Vincent DeLuca. "Mrs. Johnson," Vincent said, not quite making it sound respectful, "there seems to be a problem with your reservation. My husband called. He said—" "Yes, he called. But the issue is that this is a reservation for 2, and you've arrived alone. Our policy is that we cannot seat incomplete parties during our prime dining hours." "My husband will be here in 10 minutes. "That's what you say. But we have a waiting list. This table could be given to a complete party right now." He gestured vaguely toward the dining room, where Mayme could see several empty tables. "I'd like to wait at the table for my husband," Mayme said, keeping her voice calm. "Your hostess can bring me water. I won't order until he arrives." "I don't think you understand," Vincent said, his voice dropping lower, colder. "This restaurant has standards, a certain clientele, and frankly, I'm not sure you and your husband are the right fit for Le Chateau." The words hung in the air. Mayme understood immediately what he was saying, what he meant. "We have a reservation," she repeated, her voice steady, though her hands had started to shake slightly. "My husband made it 3 weeks ago. We're paying customers." "I'm the owner and chef of this establishment," Vincent said, stepping closer. "I decide who eats here, and I'm telling you that your reservation has been canceled." "On what grounds?" "On the grounds that I don't want you here." Several other guests in the entrance area had stopped their conversations. Everyone was watching now. "I'd like to speak to a manager." "I am the manager, and I'm asking you to leave." "I'm not leaving. I'm waiting for my husband." Vincent's expression hardened. "Then I'll help you leave." He reached out and grabbed Mayme's arm, not gently, hard enough to hurt. "Let go of me," Mayme said, trying to pull away. "You're causing a disturbance," Vincent said, already pulling her toward the door. "I won't have you disrupting my restaurant." He physically dragged her to the entrance, opened the door, and pushed her out onto the sidewalk. "Don't come back," he said, and slammed the door shut. Mayme stood on the sidewalk, stunned. Her arm hurt where he'd grabbed her. Her dress was wrinkled. Other pedestrians were staring. She started walking. Not toward home, just away, anywhere but there. The humiliation crashed over her in waves. The way Vincent had looked at her, the way he touched her, the way he threw her out like she was trash. She'd been refused service before, followed in stores, treated with suspicion, but she'd never been physically removed from an establishment by its owner. Tears started running down her face before she could stop them. Bumpy Johnson pulled his car onto the street outside Le Chateau at 8:17 p.m., already composing his apology for being 17 minutes late. Then he saw her. Mayme walking down the sidewalk away from the restaurant, her shoulders hunched, wiping at her face. Bumpy's heart stopped. He pulled the car over immediately, got out, and crossed the street in 4 long strides. "Mayme." She turned, saw him, and the look on her face, shame, hurt, humiliation, hit Bumpy like a physical blow. "What happened?" he asked quietly. The chef. He said we didn't belong there. He canceled our reservation, and when I wouldn't leave, he grabbed my arm and pushed me out." "He touched you?" "He pulled me to the door and pushed me onto the sidewalk." Her voice broke. "In front of everyone, like I was nothing." Bumpy looked at her arm. Even in the dim streetlight, he could see the red marks where Vincent had grabbed her. Something very cold settled in Bumpy's chest. Not rage. Rage was hot, impulsive, uncontrolled. This was something else. "Get in the car," Bumpy said softly. "Bumpy, please, I just want to go home." "I'm taking you home, but first I need you to tell me exactly what happened. Everything he said, everything he did." In the car, Mayme told him. The hostess's hesitation, Vincent appearing personally, the way he'd spoken about standards and clientele, how he'd grabbed her arm, how he'd thrown her out. Bumpy listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for 30 seconds. "I'm taking you home. Julius will stay with you tonight." "Where are you going?" "I'm going to make a phone call." "Bumpy, please don't." "I'm not going to do anything tonight. Tonight, I'm taking you home. I'm making sure you're safe, and then I'm going to make one phone call. That's all." He drove her home, called Julius to come sit with her, and then went to his office at Small's Paradise. At 9:30 p.m., Bumpy made his first call. By midnight, he'd made 7 more, and Chef Vincent DeLuca, celebrating a successful dinner service and counting the night's receipts, had no idea that his career had just ended. Saturday morning, 11 a.m., the New York Times food critic who'd given Le Chateau a glowing review 6 months ago received an anonymous package containing photographs and witness statements describing how Chef Vincent DeLuca had physically removed a black woman from his restaurant the previous evening. At 2 p.m., that critic called Vincent. "I need to speak with you about an incident last night involving a customer." "What incident?" Vincent asked, though his stomach was already tightening. "You physically removed a woman from your restaurant, grabbed her by the arm and pushed her onto the sidewalk, in front of witnesses. That woman was causing a disturbance. Was she violent?" "No, but was she drunk?" "No." "Then why did you put your hands on a paying customer and forcibly remove her from your establishment?" Vincent didn't have a good answer. The critic continued, "I'm writing a follow-up to my review. It'll run tomorrow. I thought you should know." At 4 p.m., Vincent received a call from his landlord. "Vincent, we need to discuss your lease. There's been some concerns about incidents at the restaurant that could affect the building's reputation." At 6 p.m., 3 celebrity regulars who'd been dining at Le Chateau weekly suddenly canceled their standing reservations. By Saturday evening, Vincent was pacing his office, trying to figure out how one incident had spiraled so quickly. Sunday morning, the Times ran the follow-up piece. The headline, Acclaimed Chef's Darker Side, Discrimination and Violence at Le Chateau. The article detailed the incident with Mayme. It included witness statements from other diners who'd seen Vincent grab her and throw her out. It questioned whether his standards were about quality or about race. It ended with a line that made Vincent's blood run cold. Perhaps the Michelin Guide should reconsider whether this establishment deserves recognition. By Sunday afternoon, protesters were gathering outside Le Chateau. Not many, maybe 20 people, but they had signs, "No violence against women," and "Discrimination is not cuisine." By Sunday evening, Vincent's reservation book, usually filled weeks in advance, started showing cancellations. Monday morning, Vincent received a call from the Michelin inspector who'd been scheduled to visit Le Chateau next month. "Mr. DeLuca, in light of recent reports about your establishment, we are postponing our evaluation indefinitely. This is a misunderstanding. The woman was a paying customer who had a reservation, and you physically removed her. That's not a misunderstanding, that's assault." "I didn't assault anyone. You grabbed her hard enough to leave marks on her arm. That's assault, and it's certainly not behavior befitting a Michelin-caliber establishment." The line went dead. At noon, Vincent's produce supplier called. "Vincent, we're having trouble sourcing what you need. Maybe you should find another vendor." At 2 p.m., his seafood supplier called with the same message. At 4 p.m., his wine distributor called to say they were restructuring their client list. By Monday evening, Vincent was sitting in his office, watching his supply chain collapse, his reputation crumble, and his dream of a Michelin star evaporate. He knew who was behind this: Bumpy Johnson. The woman he'd thrown out was Bumpy Johnson's wife, and Bumpy Johnson was systematically destroying everything Vincent had built. Tuesday morning, Vincent DeLuca called the number he'd looked up in desperation. Small's Paradise, Bumpy Johnson's office. Julius Gordon answered. "Who's calling?" "Vincent DeLuca. I need to speak with Mr. Johnson." "About what?" "About Friday night. About his wife. Please, I need to speak with him." Julius put him on hold for 30 seconds, then Bumpy's voice came on the line. "Mr. DeLuca. Mr. Johnson, I need to apologize. What happened Friday night, it was wrong. I was wrong. You grabbed my wife's arm hard enough to bruise it. You dragged her to the door and threw her onto the street. You humiliated her in front of your entire restaurant. I know. I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking." "You were thinking that a black woman didn't belong in your restaurant, and that you had the right to put your hands on her to remove her." Vincent couldn't deny it. "Please, Mr. Johnson, my restaurant is falling apart. My suppliers are gone. My reservations are canceled. The Michelin evaluation is postponed indefinitely. I'm losing everything." "Good. Please, tell me what I can do to fix this." "You can't fix this, Mr. DeLuca. You can't undo what you did to my wife. You can't take back the bruises on her arm or the humiliation of being thrown onto the street. Then what do you want from me?" There was a long pause. "I want you to understand something," Bumpy said finally. "You thought you had power because you had a successful restaurant and some celebrity clients. You thought that power gave you the right to treat my wife however you wanted. So I'm teaching you what real power looks like. It's not about who eats at your tables. It's about who decides whether you have tables at all." "I understand. Please, what can I do?" "You're going to apologize to my wife, in person. You're going to cook her the meal you should have served her Friday night, and you're going to do it yourself. Not your sous chef, you. And Vincent, when you cook that meal, you're going to understand that this isn't mercy. This is you learning what it costs to put your hands on someone you shouldn't have touched." "When?" "Tonight, 8 p.m., the same time you threw her out. And Vincent, if you say one word out of line, if you show even a hint of the arrogance you showed Friday, I won't stop with your suppliers and your Michelin star. I'll make sure you never work in a kitchen again. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Tuesday evening, 8 p.m. Mayme Johnson walked into Le Chateau on Bumpy's arm. The restaurant was nearly empty. Most of the reservation cancellations hadn't been filled. The protesters were still outside, though they'd dwindled to about 10 people. The hostess who'd made Mayme wait on Friday rushed forward immediately. Mrs. Johnson, Mr. Johnson, please, right this way. She led them to the best table in the house, corner location, perfect view of the dining room, privacy but prominence. Vincent DeLuca emerged from the kitchen wearing his chef's whites, looking exhausted and defeated. He approached their table and stood there for a moment, clearly struggling with what to say. Mrs. Johnson, his voice barely above a whisper, I owe you an apology that words can't adequately express. What I did to you Friday night was inexcusable. I refused to seat you because of my own prejudice. I put my hands on you. I physically removed you from my restaurant. I humiliated you, and I have no excuse for any of it. Mayme looked at him with the same calm dignity she'd shown Friday when he'd been dragging her to the door. Why? She asked simply. Because I thought I had the right to decide who belonged in my restaurant, and I thought you didn't belong. I was wrong about everything. Are you sorry because you were wrong, or because you're losing your restaurant? Vincent met her eyes. Both. I'm sorry because I'm losing everything I built, but I'm also sorry because I've spent the last 4 days understanding what I did to you, how I made you feel, and I'm ashamed. Mayme nodded slowly. Then I accept your apology, Mr. DeLuca. Thank you, said Vincent. And if you'll allow me, I'd like to cook for you tonight. Not as penance, as an honor that I didn't earn but hope I can. He returned to the kitchen. For the next 2 hours, Vincent DeLuca personally prepared every dish. He didn't delegate to his sous chef. He didn't let anyone else touch the plates. He cooked the way he'd cooked when he first fell in love with cuisine, with focus, care, and humility. The meal he served was extraordinary. A Dover sole so perfectly prepared it melted on the tongue. Vegetables sourced that morning from upstate farms. A wine pairing that elevated each course. When dessert was served, a delicate lemon tart with fresh berries, Vincent came out of the kitchen one more time. Mrs. Johnson, Mr. Johnson, thank you for allowing me to cook for you tonight. The meal was excellent, said Mayme. I'm glad, and I want you to know that I've learned something these past few days. Success means nothing if it's built on treating people as less than human. I'm going to do better. After they left, Vincent DeLuca stood in his empty restaurant and understood that his career would never be what it was before Friday night. The Michelin star was gone. The celebrity clients were gone. The reputation was damaged beyond repair. But he'd learned something worth more than any of that. You can't treat people like they're beneath you and expect to stay on top yourself. And when you put your hands on someone you shouldn't touch, you pay a price that no apology can fully erase. Within 2 weeks, Le Chateau closed permanently. Vincent DeLuca sold the space, paid his debts, and left New York. He moved to a small town upstate and opened a modest bistro where he cooked simple food for regular people who'd never heard of Michelin stars or celebrity chefs. He never spoke publicly about what happened at Le Chateau, but everyone who knew him noticed a change. He treated every customer with respect. He hired based on skill, not appearance. And he never, ever put his hands on anyone in anger. Mayme Johnson never forgot that Friday night in March. The humiliation, the bruises, the tears. But she also never forgot the meal Vincent cooked for her 3 days later. Not because it was delicious, though it was, because it represented something important. Even people who do terrible things can learn. Even powerful men can be humbled, and even bruises fade if the lesson is learned well enough. Bumpy Johnson had taught that lesson in 72 hours. Not with violence, not with threats, but by showing Chef Vincent DeLuca that touching Mayme Johnson, that humiliating her, that treating her as less than human came with a cost that no amount of culinary skill could erase. Vincent DeLuca had been a rising star in Manhattan's restaurant scene. Now he was a humble cook in a small town who understood that respect isn't about who you serve, it's about how you treat everyone who walks through your door, regardless of their color, regardless of their name, regardless of whether you think they belong, because everyone belongs at a table, and anyone who forgets that doesn't deserve to cook.